Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, hooligans, shills, serfs, peasants, vassals, drivers. I am a useful idiot, and today I would like to talk about General Motors and how General Motors, an American manufacturing corporate giant, is now becoming an American tragedy. And I know there's some who argue that General Motors' relative success on the international market redeems them as they have to adopt to the new model of globalization. But I bring this up because I take issue that the fact that American taxpayer dollars have been used to buoy a company that is rapidly moving its operations to overseas locations. And of course they make all kinds of assurances that taxpayer money, specifically bailout money, is not going to being used to fund overseas operations, but that, of course, is a dubious claim. Although they do generate a lot of profit overseas. But let's get down to the gruesome details. The U.S. Treasury owns 26% of stock in GM still at this point, and GM and its lending arm, Ally, owe the U.S. taxpayers over $42 billion. And I bring this up because, of course, who can forget in 2010 that the GM CEO, Ed Whiteacre, bragged in TV commercials that GM had paid back its bailout in full and ahead of schedule. And, of course, President Obama has brought up General Motors as an example of how the American auto industry has come back. In fact, he even brought it up in his State of the Union address. So, in the end, this is a stretch that the American auto industry is back, and that holding up General Motors as a success story is laughable at best. So let's get back to the gruesome details. So we have Ally, the lending arm of General Motors, is on the verge of bankruptcy. And now we have General Motors stock has fallen 30% since November 2011. Sales fell another 6.4% just last July. So it looks like General Motors is headed for bankruptcy yet again. So after a bailout under George Bush and then consolidated under President Obama, the next president will also be bailing out General Motors again with taxpayer money. They only have an 18% share of the market now in auto sales. General Motors, an 18% market share. 30 years ago, they had a 60% market share. And the taxpayer investment is based on this company being able to turn around and make good on the bailout money by developing products that people in this country want. And apparently people in other countries want the product more, because what we're finding now is that 70% of all GM cars are made outside of the United States. And these are some figures that come directly from General Motors CEO Ed Whiteacre. So these are all documented and said by the CEO of General Motors, and that is that they are involved in China heavily. They are involved for the last 13 years, and they're involved in vehicle manufacturing, sales, distribution, engineering design, as well as telematics, financing, and used cars, all in China. They have 2,700 dealerships in China. They have $80 billion in General Motors and Chevrolet investments overseas. They have 4 powertrain plants in China. They have 11 joint venture uses in China. They have 11 assembly plants in China. And even after they got the bailout, and at the time they were getting the bailout from the taxpayers back in 2008, they had invested over $1 billion in state-of-the-art factories and plants in Brazil. And then in 2008, they opened a second India plant. And in 2008, they opened their first Russian plant. And so it goes. And by 2009, they were shipping more production to China, Mexico, South Korea, and Japan. So this is how it works in America now. We take a company that was a once great icon of American manufacturing that has been completely decimated in the domestic market, and has most of the cars sold to Americans by General Motors, imported from overseas. And our manufacturing sector is decimated to the point that we have a great American city like Detroit now that is a model for the future after the entire manufacturing base has been dismantled and sent overseas. The tax base dries up, all the debts pile up, and a city and a county and a state finds itself bankrupt, and so it goes. And so this is another aspect of how General Motors has gone from an American giant to an American tragedy, because what one company can do to a city like Detroit and the surrounding area says a lot about the blueprint for future devastation in the American landscape. So heads up, everyone, General Motors is losing so much of its market share that it will undoubtedly need yet another bankruptcy and more funds from the taxpayer, while it continues to move more and more of its operations to overseas markets where it sees a lot more potential in the future. So, I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.